And as we continue to grow and evolve, certain things are no longer the best use of our talents and our time, and acknowledging that, because we continue to grow. If we're doing things correctly, we continue to grow and learn and progress forward on our own personal development each day.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I am your host, as always, Yona Weiss, and with me, we have a wonderful guest, as always. Love to have guests on this podcast. Very few solo episodes, if I recall, but we have Corinn Altomare. How are you today?
Hello, Yona. I am wonderful. Thank you for having me here. Looking forward to this.
Pleasure. Yeah, it's amazing. Love to have so many people in my network and get to speak to people from all walks of life, doing so many different things. The common denominator, as you've been able to tell if you're a regular listener of Weiss Advice, is most people are into real estate. They own real estate or doing something in that industry. And I think it's just amazing how so many people come from other backgrounds and move into real estate. So, Corinn, you're one of those people, right? No one really starts out in real estate, but I want to give a little background. I mean, you are the co-founder with your husband, Sergio, of Hearthfire Holdings, which is now a self-storage investment company, which have quickly grown over the past couple of years and on the trajectory to continue that exponential growth, hopefully for many years to come. But give us a little background of how you transitioned from a career in IT and project management and all kinds of things into real estate.
Sure. So I closed on my first real estate investment in 2012 when I was on the cusp of navigating two previous careers. I was a professional opera singer for a while. And since music doesn't necessarily pay the bills to the best that we would all hope and dream for, I also had a W-2 job as a project manager for IT dev. And as a W-2 employee, I leveraged that in order to qualify for my first real estate investment. And so I came to real estate really not through a straight line at all. It was initially a way for me to have some passive income so that I could continue my artistic endeavors or do whatever else I wanted to with my life. Honestly, it has since morphed into a full-time thing. My now husband and I had just started dating. So our dates were looking at investment properties and touring properties and questionable neighborhoods and that whole thing. And then closed on the first triplex, and which I purchased as an owner occupant. And then we ended up buying another triplex together about 9 months later. And then shortly after that, we started syndicating with friends and family in the small multifamily space in and around Philadelphia. And this was all as a side hustle. We were both working our W-2s as well as learning how to be hands-on investors and do the property management. And then we got to a point of critical mass where one of us needed to quit the day job and be full-time on the investing side. That ended up being me. And then a year following, Sergio quit his W-2 as well. And we've been really off to the races ever since. That was 2017 and 18. The Philadelphia multifamily market was on a tear. It still is largely, but we just saw this, what we couldn't see other than a bubble. We couldn't imagine it being anything other than that. Right. And so we positioned to sell. We looked for a different asset class that could navigate perhaps some turbulence in our markets. And that's how we came to self-storage, which is where we are now. We do still have our portfolio of about 150 mixed use and residential doors in and around Philly. And then we also have our self-storage arm, as well as a few other ancillary businesses. Cool.
Wow. So there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, you guys, like you said, you did not take a straight line, but have certainly grown in a way that, most people kind of dream of, like how to get involved in real estate, to have that many doors and have that much experience, and now quitting your jobs to go full time and to do this. Obviously, you guys love what you're doing. That's pretty cool that you guys were going on dates, looking at properties, and that's kind of fun. But especially questionable neighborhoods in Philadelphia. That I don't know, if fun would be the right word to describe that, but
good stories,
exciting,
good stories,
adventurous. And so now you've kind of moved, like you said, more full-time into self-storage, which has taken off. I mean, when I say taken off, you just mentioned to me earlier that you're under contract to close another 10 properties in the next few months.
Yes. So 2019 was our first self-storage acquisition, and our investors, our family and friends, they came along with us. As we were self-educating on the differences between multifamily and self-storage and like making that strategic shift, we were also sharing that with our investors so that it would not come as a surprise when we pivoted from multifamily to self-storage. So by and large, our investors all stayed with us through that pivot. We were able to sell off our early multifamilies and then recapture all of those gains into the larger self-storage projects. So the first one was 2019. The second acquisition, which was 3, closed January of this year, and then another 2 closed in May. And then, yes, these next 10 are closing in the next few months here. And those are both out of state. So we're going bigger, larger number of properties, bigger footprint of properties, and out of state. So there's a lot of massive growth that's been happening this year. And I can't take full credit for it at all. It's been, as our company has grown, Sergio and I can't do it all ourselves anymore. Right. So it's been really pivotal bringing on these partners and releasing to them the ability to run and do what they do better than us, right? We have people on our team who are smarter, more experienced than I am. I mean, absolutely. It's intimidating, the team that I have now, but they're amazing people. And by us releasing into that and bringing on these right partnerships and the right people, right? Making sure that we're all pulling in the same direction, have the same values, same drivers, it's allowing us to achieve this real exponential growth. So I can't take credit for it at all, other than letting go and letting other people run in their lanes. And together we are accomplishing an incredible amount. Right.
I mean, in the end of the day, there's very little that we can actually take credit for. When you think about it, so many people contribute to, and it's so much of everything we do in life that it's just, you have to be humble, and you have to realize that other people, you can help bring them up. You can help become better through the help of others. And so I think it's amazing. Building that team has surely been a growth experience for you and your husband. Yeah. And onwards and upwards. I mean, do you still have time to do any singing, or has that been on the back burner for a while?
So I have just my very pinky toe in it. I do still sing for for 2 local churches. So our local Catholic church and then a neighboring Presbyterian church. So weekends essentially, and one night during the work week for rehearsals. And I am holding on to that with my fingernails. I have had the conversation with my music director saying, hey, the way things are growing, I'm doing more traveling. I'm in and out a little bit more. I don't know how much longer I can continue to do this. We have an understanding, and I give them my unavailable dates as far in advance as I can. They're not quite ready to completely lose me yet. So I'm trying to stay in it as much as I can. It's a service for me, and it's also completely selfish because it feeds a part of my soul that doesn't otherwise.
For sure.
It's a very special thing for me. I started singing in the church and then got into opera and classical music. So church has always been my way of fulfilling a separate and distinct part of myself.
That's awesome. And all of us have that kind of thing in us. Not everyone is able to tap into that, and not everyone is able to really experience that. But when you have, especially people who love music and are musicians, you can't really explain that to someone who doesn't, or who can't, who hasn't played a musical instrument, or hasn't, been in music in some field or another, because it is, like you said, it's something that you just tap into that really gives you an outlet that almost nothing else can.
Yep. there is in the larger, when you think about the larger choral or orchestral situations, there's a magic that happens when you have 100 adults in a room coming from all kinds of walks of life. And that moment when everyone breathes together, when everybody is working together towards creating something that is larger than each of us individually. I struggle to put into words. It is something incredibly special. So I do try to keep it in my life. There is correlation in commercial real estate because you're not able to do everything that we're doing in commercial real estate on your own. You definitely need a team. So there are similarities there, but there is something about the way that air moves amongst a group of people, either in an orchestra or a large choir together when you're doing those large works. It's something incredibly magical. And so I'm trying to keep at least small elements of it in my life as long as I can.
For sure. That's important. It is obviously important, right, to have hobbies and to have other things that really kind of meet spiritual needs for us. I mean, everyone does that. But I love that you kind of mentioned the correlation between commercial real estate, and the orchestra, because it is in a lot of ways. You need team members. And even if there's someone who's just doing like one tiny little thing, like cost segregation, for example, it's like this little tiny thing, right, that's in there, but that can change the whole, orchestra.
So important. If the jingle bells are not playing on the right beats, the entire Christmas carol is off.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So cost segregation is the jingle bells of real estate. There you go. We have it. But awesome. Where do you see you guys going with this? I mean, is it going to continue to grow? Do you see? I mean, obviously self-storage. I mean, we'll take a step before you get to answer that. Let's take a step back and just talk about self-storage for a second. The industry in of itself, right? It itself has blossomed and has grown in the past few years. I think partially because people just acquire more stuff and need a place to put it, and maybe are downsizing in their homes and things like that, or moving. And so the self-storage has become a massive industry. So my thoughts on that?
It's getting more and more competitive. And at least in this immediate market, from a consumer base, we're seeing that COVID drew this demand for home office space and maybe home school space. So we're seeing a lot of individual consumers who have had to clear out rooms of their home that maybe were otherwise being used. So maybe the second living room gets put into storage and converted into a home office or a homeschool space. From the business perspective, using storage as a warehouse or distribution center is much more cost effective per square foot than to have a commercial office space on 123 Main Street, right? So we're seeing drivers from a consumer demand on those fronts, specifically from COVID. So it's been incredibly busy from that perspective. And then also we're seeing more and more competition in buying these assets because, first of all, REITs in the primary markets are having to squeeze their returns tighter and tighter. And so the REITs and the larger private equity firms are starting to move into the secondary and tertiary markets, which is where we started and where we very solidly play. And so you're seeing the larger players now starting to even break out further from their traditional centers. You're also, because it's gotten so sexy, so you're seeing funds that have maybe traditionally been in the single family or multifamily space wanting to get into this purportedly recession-resistant asset class. So you're getting a lot of newer big money coming into the space as well.
Right.
We are endeavoring to stay ahead of that curve by continuing to leverage our networks. These deals that we're under contract are off-market and or pocket listings through relationships with operators, with brokers. So really working heavy on our network to get there first before the others or before they come to market. And I hope that answered the question. So that's our model for right now and going forward. I mean, the big step for us was going outside of Pennsylvania, right? So up until now, we've always invested close to home where we could easily get our hands and feet on the ground and be there, because we've always served as the asset managers and as the property managers ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We can't buy everything in the state of Pennsylvania. So we're at that point where we have to move and expand our boundaries, which is leading us to these next acquisitions are in Indiana and North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
So that's a step for us. We are partnering with a third party manager to help us manage those remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big step for us, and I am cautiously optimistic, but it's all growth and trust, and doing our homework and vetting these partners, before signing off on the contract, but acknowledging that it's going to be a better use of our time to continue to find the deals, close those deals, and let experts on management in those areas, in those regions, focus on running the asset while we focus on continuing to build our portfolio.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as you said, it's like, you're being cautiously optimistic, but what is the hesitation? Obviously you want to be kind of hands-on managers of everything, but in my understanding, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, obviously how you manage a property is like, especially self-storage, is paramount, like to actual having the returns. But can't a lot of what you're doing be done remotely or done like automated and things like that?
Yep, it absolutely can. And we will be continuing to oversee the 6 that we have here in Pennsylvania. That largely falls into my bucket here. And then, so to my cautious optimism about the out of state, it's the next step for us, right? It is releasing that and acknowledging that there are only so many hours in the day, and the best use of my time and talents might not necessarily be flying back and forth to Indiana and North Carolina to visit with our local boots on the ground there. So it's the next generation as we continue to evolve and grow. This has been a big learning process for Sergio and I as we grow, is letting go of things, right? Because so much of our start and everything that got us to where we are now was we bootstrapped and did every single part of the business. And as you get to scale, that's just not feasible anymore. Right. So continuing to release into that and let go and do our due diligence on our new partners, and certainly make sure that everyone is being held accountable to their job, but also not micromanaging them. For sure. I don't know if that was completely off base answering your question, but that's where we are.
No, it's awesome. I mean, it's so difficult because all of us, anyone, whatever business you're in, especially real estate, when you want to scale, you realize you have to bring on partners, you have to bring on team members, you have to offload responsibilities just simply because there's not enough hours in the day to do everything that you once did on a smaller portfolio.
And as we continue to grow and evolve, certain things are no longer the best use of our talents and our time, and acknowledging that. Because we continue to grow. If we're doing things correctly, we continue to grow and learn and progress forward on our own personal development each day. And so things that I did excellently a year ago, it might not be worth my time to continue to do those. I'd be better served passing those off to a team member today. So you asked about our management model and if it can be done remotely. And the answer to that is yes. We've been going through a really big search, if you will, of finding the absolute best technology tools. And there are so many good ones out there. And there's some really amazing and incredibly sexy technology for operating self-storage where we could spend all of our investor money on that, but it wouldn't necessarily be the best return. So we're navigating the right balance between cutting edge technology and what is enough to operate the business and for maximum returns for our investors. So we are navigating that space where, yes, we need to have someone local, right? We don't need to have someone 40 hours a week on site sitting in the office. We need to have maximized websites. We need to have QR codes on our facility where people can roll up, scan the QR code, reserve a unit online, do e-signature, get all their lease documents sent to them immediately, and then either get texted or otherwise sent a code to get into the gate and start moving in. So we're building our operations to be largely unmanned, but not without a local physical presence,
Right.
at least a few times a week to go check on the facilities. We do make sure that we have cameras set up that are cloud-based and that I can view from my phone wherever I am, wherever the facility is. So we're balancing both. We're balancing, just enough technology for us to give customers a really seamless experience, and then also leveraging our team members and our human capital where we absolutely need it. So, so that's what we're doing from an operational standpoint. And there's some really cutting edge, very exciting stuff that's going on in the industry. So we're watching all that closely.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's like new stuff coming out all the time, right?
Yep.
we had a webinar done for my monthly meetup about a year ago about self-storage. And, I'm sure the technologies that they were talking about a year ago, some of them have, are maybe obsolete, or there are other things that have just come to market that are even better, or, more savvy, whatever. So it's amazing to see as the industry is evolving, and how especially technology and automation is just kind of taking over in so many different ways.
Yep, absolutely.
What's one thing, if you wouldn't mind sharing, you mentioned about personal growth and about how you have, needed to recognize there's certain things that you just may not be the best use of your time in going forward. I wonder if you could share with us like one thing that you've realized you need to offload, or you need to find someone else who would be better at, or to free up more time for you to do what you do better.
Super basic on the property management side. I don't do showings anymore. I don't answer the phone for any tenants, any customers from that perspective. We have a leasing agent and an office manager who does all of that. And that's what I did. Our daughter is 4 now. The first 2.5 years of her life, I was doing all the showings, and she came with me to everything. And she was a great leasing agent. I mean, she closed apartment leases like nobody else. But I don't have the time to be running around the city across all of our different properties anymore. So, right. I mean, super simple, super basic, but not doing any of that anymore. We outsourced our phones we have a call center for our storage facilities. And then we have a VA for our property management function. So the fact that my phone doesn't ring anymore with just basic public facing types of calls, that's been huge. Yeah. Being able to get back control over my own day. And I don't answer my phone. I'll screen voicemails and I'll look at text messages and I'll get back to folks then. But otherwise, if my phone is open and my day then becomes at the will of anyone else attempting to call and get a hold of me, sure. It's kind of like, opening your email inbox first thing in the morning, then the monkeys take over. So instead, doing the work that I've identified as the most strategically important first, and then getting caught back up on messages and other people's needs.
Yeah, that's great. Can definitely relate to that. So definitely like that take on it. Free up your time to simple tasks like that. You can definitely hand off to a leasing agent, anything like that. So I'd love to transition now. Time flies on this show, obviously, but love to transition to what we call the final 4. And these are 4 questions we ask all of our guests. And the first question to you is going to be, what's the worst job that you ever had?
It'd be tough to call it a job, but let's call it a music internship that I did at the really what ended up being the end of my full-time pursuit in music. It was a very poorly run experience, and I ended up getting burned out through that experience. Lost the joy, if you will. The tone that leadership set was just completely soured me on music after a very long and arduous 10 years of hustling 24/7. And so it was at that point that I just knew that I needed to take a break from music because I didn't love it anymore. And I didn't want to turn into one of those lifetime jaded people. So I just took a break and redirected all of my energy into my new pursuits, which was real estate investing. And so if that had not happened, then I would not be here today. So 0 regrets. And I'm very grateful for all the opportunities and the experiences that I had. All of that hustle and drive and constant learning and saying yes to things and figuring it out as I go absolutely applied to real estate, to building a business, to building multiple businesses, because we have a few now, and just constant learning and evolution through whatever it is that we're doing on this adventure we call life.
Yeah. Wow. It's hard to imagine, something like that could happen. But when you have such a passion for something and you put so many years of your life into it, and then just to kind of be let down by an experience of how it can actually be if, surrounded by certain people, and it's unfortunate, but I'm glad you shared that with us. And obviously, it was for the better, and it led you to, what you're doing now, which
you get an incredibly thick skin, which, translates well into entrepreneurship.
Right. That's for sure. So second question, what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
Oh, you've probably heard this one already, but Who Not How was a big one for me. And I'm still wrestling with it, because my default is still to be the one doing all the things. But that was a really, really, really transformative one for us. And simple concept, right? Absolutely simple concept. But really, really key as we've continued to grow and evolve into whatever is next for us at Hearthfire.
For sure. I mean, it has come up several times on this show. People have mentioned that. The funny thing is, I have, obviously, as you can imagine, we're up to, we've done over 160, 170 episodes or so. So I have a huge reading list, because I ask this question to every single person. So I'm always grateful when someone brings up a book that we've already heard before. So
you don't have to add another
one to the list. But what it does is, what I do is I move it up the list when someone wants it multiple times. So now that one gets to jump up. So I'm going to put that as probably one that's been meaning to get to. So it's on my reading list, and probably in the top 10. I'll get to it the next year. So,
and then right along with that would be the 4-Hour Work Week. We just did a month-long RV trip.
Oh, cool.
And we listened to the 4-Hour Work Week, and that takes Who Not How and then kind of throws rocket fuel on it. And so we're working on applying concepts from that now to our lives as we continue to build our businesses and also live a life of our own design. So Those two really, really go hand in hand.
Okay. Well, I'll put them in that order then. Definitely put it out. Awesome. So let's move to the third question, which is going to be, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
Okay. So downhill skiing, which I can do blues and greens and not break my body. But my goal is to learn how to do black diamond downhill skiing, because I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. And I grew up cross country skiing. Growing up in Southern California, we would go up to Big Bear and Mammoth and kind of ski the backside. I'm passable going downhill. I really want to be able to take on the black diamonds, and I need to do it with a legit instructor to make sure that I can get down the mountain without completely breaking myself. But I love. That's on my bucket list for this upcoming winter season.
Very cool. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Any destinations in mind for doing that?
Park City, Utah for January. Yep.
Nice. That's a great place, great location. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, good for you. And fourth and final question, what does success mean to you?
So it's living my life on my own terms. In order to do that, I need to spend more time in that zone of effortless work, right? And this goes hand in hand with the growth that I apparently am focused on today. And so finding my zone of genius, if you will, right? The key things that are the best use of my time and talents, and outsourcing everything else to my team, and making sure that, because hand in hand with that is supporting my team and making sure that they have everything that they need to take what I'm handing off to them and run with it, and absolutely feel ownership and that sense of responsibility and pride, because I don't want to be micromanaging them, right? So I want to make sure that we have the right people in the right seat, and clear responsibility and their own agency to pursue that, so that I can spend, let's call it 75% of my time where I am doing that effortless work. where I am working on my core skills that are the best use of my time, my talents, and my passion. That was a long-winded answer, but that would be my definition of success.
There you go. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. It rings true. And it definitely meshes well with everything you said so far today. So that's always a good sign. So where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they choose to?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can shoot me an email. I'm sure you'll include stuff in the notes.
Yeah.
Corinn, Corinn at hearthfireholdings.com. We're in the middle of rebranding a bunch of our websites and whatnot. So that's all kind of in construction. But nice. Email and LinkedIn probably would be the best and the most direct way to get a hold of me.
Very cool. Okay. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And I appreciate you taking the time out with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to me go on and on about all kinds of random rabbit holes.
This is great. I'm sure everyone got something out of this episode. So appreciate you for coming on, and thanks to all the listeners who joined us all the way to the end. Remember, until next time, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.